Let's go. Today I'm talking about the 2012 film Resolution. As always, this review is going to be spoiler free, so if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe to this channel and like the video. In an attempt to save his friend from the depths of drug addiction, Michael, who is played by Peter Solella, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, handcuffs his friend to a pipe in the wall of a small cabin in order to force him to go through a week of sobriety. But as the days pass, increasingly strange occurrences cause Michael to begin to suspect that a supernatural force might be at work in the area. Now, there's only one reason that I'm even reviewing this micro-budget picture, and that is because a while back I saw this little movie called The Endless. It's a little known and highly underrated movie from the filmmaking team of Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, who also directed this movie. Then recently, Resolution just popped up in my Shudder feed, so I thought, this looks interesting, let me check it out. And within like 5 minutes, I'm seeing a scene from The Endless in this movie, which really threw me for a loop. And so I did some investigating, and sure enough, this movie came out 6 years prior to The Endless, but it takes place in the same universe. So I thought, why don't I just do a duology and review these two movies? So that's why I'm talking this movie this week, and next week I'll be covering The Endless. This movie has a lot of good elements, and I feel like it showcases a lot of the strengths of these two directors, strengths that they will develop further in future movies. To start, one of the strongest elements of these two's work is their characters. The two main characters in this movie are fantastically well written. The dialogue is very naturalistic, which gives them a realism that is rare in movies. I really feel like I get to know these two characters over the course of the movie. And they're not just archetypes. They're like real people. They're complex, and they have good qualities, but they also have deep character flaws. The two men mean well in their own ways, but they see the world in fundamentally different ways, and I think we can all relate to that on some level. Many of us have experienced the feeling of wanting to change someone that we love, wanting to see them do better for themselves, but feeling helpless knowing that it's impossible to change them. And as hard as we try, there are some people who are just going to continue thinking the way that they want to think, regardless of how much we try to show them a different way. This is the fundamental dilemma of this movie, and it's what makes it really hit home for me. But it's not just the two main characters who are great. This movie is littered with minor characters who, in most movies, would make no impact. But here, even the little characters shine. Each one has their own things that make them memorable, and this adds tremendously to the quality of the movie, because as I'm about to get to in a moment, the supernatural mystery elements of the movie don't really work all that well for me. So this movie could end up being exceedingly boring if I wasn't enjoying each little interaction with each little character. But yeah, now let's get to the other element of this movie. This is a mystery movie, and strange supernatural things continuously occur throughout the course of this movie that the main character, Michael, has to keep investigating. And yeah, this stuff, for me, just does not work very well. The mystery itself is just not all that compelling. The supernatural elements do play into the story a little bit, especially near the end, but they don't really add much to it. The scenes where the strange supernatural things are occurring are the least compelling and least interesting scenes in the movie, so I was never really all that curious about what's going on to begin with. But the worst part about the mystery is that it never gets solved. This movie opts for an ambiguous ending where the supernatural stuff isn't really explained, and in some movies, that works really well. But in this movie, it just isn't satisfying. If you were watching this movie when it was released, you would have to wait 6 more years for The Endless to explain what the hell is even going on here, because this movie just doesn't. And that's disappointing. The third act and the ending of this movie are just confusing. The character arcs are left in a really satisfying place, but despite the title of this movie, the mystery is left with no resolution. One last little thing I want to point out is that this is not a horror movie. A lot of people classify it as such, but it just doesn't really fall into that category. There's one really good jump scare in the movie that kind of made my soul leave my body for a second, but other than that, this movie is not scary and it doesn't really feel like it's trying to be. But overall, this movie is not bad at all. As a character drama, it really works. As a supernatural mystery, not so much. But I really enjoyed this movie, and I can't wait to talk The Endless next week because without spoiling anything, I think that movie takes a lot of elements of this movie and improves upon them, and also resolves a lot of the confusion of this movie. But for now, I'm going to give Resolution a strong 6 out of 10.